Looking to book a getaway in 2026? Why not try Which Travel Brand of the Year Trailfinders? Right now, Which members can save £100 on any 7-night or more holiday that includes flights. Just head to which.co.uk/trailfinders to find out more. Not a Which member? Get 50% off a membership right now. Go to which.co.uk/podcast offer to get involved. T's and C's apply.
Protein powder and creatine supplements are becoming more and more popular. But do you need to take them, or are they only necessary for budding gym goers? Welcome to this podcast from Which. Hello, it's Rob Lilly-Jones here with a brand new episode of our Healthy Living podcast, bringing you expert advice and recommendations to help you live your best life every day. Now, as is the norm, let's welcome our public health nutritionist, Shefalee Loth. Shefalee, hello.
Hi.
And also, as ever, we are again joined by the founder of City Dietitians, Sophie Medlin.
Hi, Rob. Nice to see you.
It is lovely to have you both back in the studio. Now, I should say, that if you're listening to this and you are a Which member, good news, you'll be able to hear the results of our protein powder and creatine reviews in full. To listen, then simply click the link in the description for this episode and head to which.co.uk. If you aren't a member yet and are considering signing up, then we've got 50% off for all of our podcast listeners over on which.co.uk/podcast offer. That said, there is still loads of useful info in today's podcast. Now, before we get to protein powder itself, it might help if we start by outlining what protein actually is and why is it important in our diet.
So protein is one of our, what we would call macronutrients. So something we need quite a lot of, as opposed to micronutrients, vitamins and minerals that we need much, much smaller amounts of. Protein is essential for the maintenance and building and restructuring of protein structures in the body. And essentially, I think it's worth remembering every single bit of us is built from protein, from your nose to your kidneys. Every structure in our body is essentially protein. And all the time, these protein structures are being broken down and renewed and repaired. And protein is essential for the repair and renewal of all protein structures in the body. And muscles is the one that we think of a lot, right? Because we can grow muscles and build muscle throughout our lifetime, depending on what we do and what we consume. And so protein is essential for the growth and maintenance and building of muscle tissues. Now,
which foods can we get protein from, and how much do we need as well?
I think there's a real myth here that most of us are protein deficient. Actually in the UK, probably the majority of us are eating enough protein because it is in a lot of foods. Now, the foods that you typically think of when you think of high protein are your animal foods, so your meat, your fish, your dairy, but also it's available in lots of vegan, plant-based foods too, such as lentils, peas, beans, and then also Tofu, that's true. Soya beans, for example, and also in brown rice and things like that. It's present in whole grains. So actually, you can get it from a lot of sources. The other big one that I didn't mention was eggs.
Is it the case that with some, say, plant-based sort of meat replacement products, is it possible for them to almost add protein in the manufacturing process, or is that not something that necessarily happens?
If you walk around the supermarket, you will see a lot of foods that have added protein in, and that goes from breakfast cereals to yogurts to
Mars bars,
chocolate bars even. And the thing is, our advice at Which is you don't really need to be taking these. If you eat a healthy, balanced diet, then actually you'll be getting the protein that you need.
Okay, so that's the protein that we can get in food, so naturally occurring protein, other than obviously, as we said, the products there that sometimes have protein added in as part of the manufacturing process. But that aside, we're talking about protein powder. I'm sure most people will probably know what protein powder is. They might have seen it on the shelf. They might go to the gym and see big posters for it everywhere. But what actually is it?
Protein powders are supplemental protein, additional protein that you can take as a drink to give you additional grams of protein throughout the day. And they can be from dairy sources. Most commonly, they're from dairy sources, specifically whey, which is a byproduct of the dairy industry, so a waste product. And there are now, of course, vegan protein products as well. And we'll probably get into the importance of how you choose those later.
And who should be or who is taking protein powder?
So I think traditionally they've been used by gym goers. You'll often see people with a big shake bottle that they'll drink throughout the day, or they'll drink before or after a workout. But actually, there are examples in our life cycles where actually we might need more protein as well. And one of those is if you're recovering from illness or injury or surgery, or as you age, for example. We know as we age, our muscle mass declines. And so as we get older, there is a recommendation actually for people over 65 to increase their protein intakes. And a lot of people, as they get older, can't eat huge meals. So actually, in those instances, a protein shake powder can be a really good addition to their diet to make sure that their protein intake is at the right levels.
And as is always the case with these podcasts, we always say, who should be taking these things, who is taking these things, but who shouldn't be taking protein powder? Is there anyone who shouldn't be taking it? Are there anything that we should be worried about if we're taking too much?
We do have a concern about people who have kidney problems having excess protein, but those are generally people who've got quite advanced stage kidney failure. And so actually they are people who, for the vast majority of the time, will be under medical supervision and care and will have their protein intake monitored. So for almost everybody, protein shakes are safe and appropriate if you think that you want to take one or you might need a bit of extra protein.
Now, is there a good way for calculating how much protein we're already getting? So I think a lot of people either watching or listening to this will be interested in, what is my daily or weekly intake?
Yeah, so actually the NHS recommends that people consume 0.75 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight.
That is very specific.
It is very specific, and it involves a bit of calculation, which I can't do off the top of my head. But actually, for a kind of adult who weighs around 60 kilograms, that's probably around 52 grams of protein a day. Now, Sophie will probably know better off the top of her head how much protein is in certain foods, but I guess a chicken breast probably has how many?
Probably about 15 grams, maybe up to 20 grams, depending on the size of it.
Yeah, exactly. And an egg?
About 9 grams.
So actually...
Don't do any more.
Yeah.
I thought this was becoming like one of those comprehension tests there for a second.
But actually, if you're eating breakfast, lunch and dinner, and then you're thinking about your snacks and being a bit clever about your snacking in that you're having nuts or an egg, for example, or some hummus, then actually all those foods will have protein in them too. And so it's not that difficult to hit your target protein intake if you're young, healthy. Obviously, we talked about getting older and or being ill and your protein needs increasing. And then obviously you don't want to be eating 3 chicken breasts a day, for example. And, that's expensive as well. And protein shakes can be a cheaper way to increase your protein intake.
So if you are taking a protein shake, then you are making a protein shake at home, what time of day would you recommend doing that, or when should you do that? Obviously, we've said gym goers will be, very familiar with making a protein shake before you go to the gym. Is that the right way around doing it? Should you do it, an hour before, 2 hours before? Should you do it after?
Yeah, we used to say that it was very important that you have a protein shake within 20 minutes or have protein anyway. So whether you're coming home from the gym and having a meal straight away, whatever it might be, having a dose of protein immediately after, so within 20 minutes of your workout. Now we understand that actually the dose over the day and the sort of amount that you're having at each interval is much more important. So we can massively overload the system with protein, but equally it doesn't matter so much about the timing, it's really about the substrate being regularly available through the day.
Now, for our members, we will get into those results very, very shortly. But before we do that, any advice for buying protein powder? What should we be looking for? We're in, whether it's the supermarket or pharmacy or maybe in the gym where they're selling them. What should we be looking for?
So in our analysis, actually, we looked at different criteria in the protein powders, and we looked at the bioavailability of the protein, so how easy is it to absorb. We also looked at the dose, and this is really key here because actually the evidence shows that really people should be aiming for a dose of around 20 to 25 grams of protein to really maximize that kind of muscle synthesis. So I would recommend, if you're looking at a protein shake, make sure it has about 25 grams of protein in it per serving. Now, that's if you've got a whey shake, because the bioavailability of whey is very high. If you're choosing a vegan option, then actually you probably want that to be a bit higher because the bioavailability of vegan sources of protein is lower. So we judged products having good dose if they had around 30 grams of protein per serving.
And we've mentioned it a lot on all of these podcasts, but it's always worth reminding people when we talk about bioavailability, what do we mean?
Bioavailability is essentially how well your body absorbs it.
Which is pretty straightforward. In my head, it was more complicated, but that all sounds very straightforward. So that's some really useful buying advice. But also, I suppose, one thing for people to remember, there are so many different types of protein powder on the market as well. So how can we help people navigate that often confusing world of what's out there, because there's different flavours, different types, all sorts?
I think one of the things that we reflected on when doing this is actually a lot of them are a much of a muchness. And so in that sense, it's sort of finding one that you look at and think, okay, there's not a wild amount of additives that I don't really recognise in there, if that's important to you. Also, the dose is about right for me. If you want to decide between whether you want a vegan one or you want a whey-based one, an animal-based one, that's obviously an important decision in terms of decision-making factors. But really, it is about finding one that you like, that you find that you can tolerate well in terms of gastrointestinal tolerance. It doesn't make you have diarrhea or gas or anything like that, and that you think you can build into your routine regularly. Those are the key things, really, if that's something you want to look into. But I think it's sort of find one that you like and enjoy it, and that's the main thing, really.
And before we move on to those results, we've mentioned some of the more traditional protein powders, but we did touch on vegan protein powders that are out there as well. Do they work in a similar way, or are they a bit different?
They're a bit different in that all whey protein powders, whether it's whey isolate or whey concentrate, they all have 100% bioavailability, and they contain the exact right balance of amino acids, which are like the building blocks of protein, to support muscle synthesis and growth. So whey protein is easy, they're all good, and that's all great. With vegan protein sources, there is a really important variance in bioavailability, which is why, as Shefalee said, we had to increase the recommended dose for vegan proteins because you don't absorb quite as much of it. Also, really importantly, in a vegan protein powder, you need a few different sources of protein in that vegan protein powder to make sure it's complete in all the essential amino acids. It's also really important that they contain the right amount of leucine, which is the building block and the really crucial amino acid for muscle building. And so it was more complicated looking at those and trying to understand which ones have got the right bioavailability, but also the right blend of different protein sources to be a complete protein.
But it's good that they are on the market and there are some good options out there.
100%. And I think it's really important that we cater to everybody. And some people can't tolerate dairy at all. And therefore, these are, they might have an allergy or just an intolerance. And these are a great option for those people, as well as those who are following a plant-based diet.
So if you want the results, then if you are not a member yet, then don't forget you can sign up, which.co.uk/podcast offer. Now then, before we move on to creatine, a reminder about something very special happening very soon, towards the end of this month. Now, the final episode of this new health podcast series will be available for you to watch live. Now, it's happening on Thursday, the 22nd of January, and you can join us live on Zoom, where you'll get to watch our expert panel discuss the question, can we get healthier as we age? Now, you'll also be able to put your questions to our experts, and to sign up for free and register, then simply click the link in the description for this podcast or on the page wherever you're listening, and you will get the chance to join us for that special live podcast. Now then, let's move on to creatine, another supplement associated with exercise. Does it work?
Yeah, I mean, creatine is a really effective supplement for improving muscle function. So what we know is that could potentially help you to push out 3 more reps on those heavier weights that you're doing. It could help you to sprint for a little bit longer or run for a bit longer and provide your muscles with a bit more energy to do a bit more when you're working out. And there is some exciting evidence now around cognitive benefits of creatine, but it is early, and so we need to view that with a slightly skeptical eye. But I think in the next few years that'll really come into its own, and we'll see some really exciting information about the potential benefits of creatine in mood and cognitive behaviour.
Is it safe to say creatine's a bit more niche? It's not quite as mainstream as protein powder?
Well, I think it has been niche for years, and it's a supplement that's been around for a long time, and it's very, very well researched. But most of the research has all been regarding its use within the gym sphere, whereas actually now, as Sophie said, there's more interest and there's wider interest around its uses to see whether actually it can offer benefits to a wider community.
So is it proven to work? Sophie, you said there's been some exciting developments in this space recently, or potentially some exciting developments. Are there any proven or authorised health claims?
In the UK, there are. So on the UK Register of Nutrition and Health Claims, there are 2 approved claims for creatine, and they are both around exercise. So one is about helping you maintain exercise for that bit longer, so helps your muscle growth. And it essentially does this by helping you work a bit longer, helping you lift a bit heavier, and so building muscle mass through that way. And the second health claim is specifically for people over the age of 55. And that is a similar claim about helping them work harder at the gym, basically. Now, I think it's really important to say here that creatine by itself is not going to do anything for you. You've got to combine it with that resistance training in the gym.
It brings us on to our next question quite nicely, because, you said one of those health claims around sort of older people using creatine. Who would benefit from using it?
I think that it depends on how these cognitive studies go, right? At the moment, people who are training regularly and want to improve their performance in training and get just that bit more out of each workout are going to benefit from creatine. We know that from the research, it's pretty clear. And so it's worth them taking it. One of the things that I would caveat that with, and maybe this is why creatine stayed relatively niche for a while amongst male weightlifters, is that it does increase your body fluid retention. So you maintain more water in your muscles, which is actually one of the reasons why it helps with muscle performance in the gym, but it makes you weigh heavier on the scales. And so some people might take it and get a bit of a surprise when they weigh themselves over the next few days. And I think that might be one of the reasons why it stayed relatively niche for a while. But hopefully we're moving into a world where what we weigh matters far less than how we feel and how our bodies are performing.
Interesting. Now, that's, who might benefit from it. But if we are looking to take it, how much should we take? And again, when should we take it?
Most of the research that has been carried out shows a benefit of a dose of between 3 and 5 grams. So if you are going to supplement with creatine, then make sure you're getting between 3 and 5 grams of it.
At what time you take creatine seems to be a little bit more important than perhaps with protein, where it looks like if we take it immediately after exercise, we get more of the muscle gain benefits than we would do if we took it beforehand. That means that you need to take a few days and your muscles will get saturated with the creatine and you'll get into a place where you've got plenty of creatine circulating in your body, and then you'll start to feel those benefits we described in the gym.
And then that all-important buying advice, that's really important for people listening or watching this. What should they be looking for?
Creatine the main thing is to look for a supplement that is 100% creatine monohydrate, and most of them are. Right? You don't need any additives in creatine. You need a relatively low dose of it. You probably want to look for a powder rather than any of the other. There's gummies and there's capsules. Unless you really struggle with the powder, then I would suggest you go with a powder that, again, doesn't taste of anything, can be added into anything. 100% creatine monohydrate, and that's what you're looking for.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because Shefalee, you don't necessarily agree on the taste.
I don't, because I try to introduce it into my routine, and I don't have a protein shake every day. And I think if you do, that's a really easy way to add it in. You just put a scoop in. But because I don't drink protein shakes, I thought, okay, well, how else am I going to get it? So I tried to add it to my morning cup of tea, and it really ruined it. I found it had a really metallic taste. So actually, I think for me, it's been harder to get a powder into my daily diet. So I did start looking at capsules and tablets and seeing whether that would be an easier option for me to build into my routine.
I think that's really fair enough. I just put it into water and get it, a small amount of water and just get it down, and I don't find it difficult, but I can understand why that would be,
Interesting. Well, have you used creatine yourself? Let us know. podcast@which.co.uk. Let us know your experience. We are about to reveal the results of our testing and our analysis of these products. Now, that is only going to be available to Which members. So if you haven't already, then make sure you sign up and get 50% off your first year's membership at which.co.uk/podcast offer. I had no idea that there was so much to say about protein powder and creatine. Guys, it's been fascinating. Any final thoughts you want to leave the listeners with?
I think one of the things to say is that I do think creatine is coming into its own, and I think 2026 we'll see lots more people taking creatine and hopefully getting the benefit from that as well in potentially multiple different ways, including cognitive but muscular as well. And I think with protein powders, the important thing to remember is you don't need to listen to so much of the hype about how much extra protein you need. But if you find it difficult to get enough protein in your diet, maybe you are largely plant-based, maybe you are struggling to get balanced meals for whatever reason, then a protein shake can be really convenient and can make a big difference in terms of how you're feeling and your energy levels levels and your muscle mass maintenance, especially in the elderly. So they are things to be considered and to look into in terms of what your diet may or may not be providing.
Sophie, Shefalee, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this podcast from Which, the UK's consumer champion. You can find plenty more advice about what we discussed today in the show notes. There you'll also find a link to become a Which member for 50% off the usual price, an offer exclusively available to you, our podcast listeners. Joining Which not only gives you access to our product reviews, our app, one-to-one personalised buying advice, and every issue of Which magazine across the year, but you'll also be helping us make life simpler, fairer, and safer for everyone. Don't forget to hit subscribe wherever you're listening, and that way you'll be notified whenever we release a new episode of Which Money, Which Shorts, or any other podcast that we make for you. And if you want to get in touch with us, then follow us on social media. We are at Which UK, or drop us an email to podcasts@which.co.uk. And we'll see you next time.
If you're enjoying this podcast from us here at Which, then why not become a Which member? Right now, we've got a special offer, especially for podcast listeners, meaning you can choose any of our 3 membership tiers for 50% off the usual price. Starting at just £39.50 for a full year, you can get Which magazine delivered direct to your door. For the same price, you could also choose a digital Which subscription, giving you access to all of our product reviews, the Which app, and the digital edition of Which magazine. What's more, you'll also be able to use the Ask Which service for personalised one-to-one buying advice. Or why not get a full access Which subscription for just £49.50 for a full year? Don't forget, that's 50% off the usual price. To join Which or to find out more, just head to which.co.uk/podcast offer. That's which.co.uk/podcast offer, or click the link in the description for today's podcast for 50% off a Which annual subscription.